Hi, I'm Steve Schindler.
I'm Katie Wilson-Milne.
Welcome to Art Law, a new monthly podcast exploring the places where art intersects with and interferes with the law.
And vice versa. Art Law is sponsored by the law firm of Schindler, Cohen & Hochman, LLP. Schindler, Cohen & Hochman is a premier litigation and art law boutique located in New York City. SCH handles a wide range of sophisticated, high-stakes litigation matters and counsels a broad range of art market participants on legal issues in the art world.
So full disclosure here, Katie and I are both art lawyers and we both practice at the Schindler, Cohen & Hochman firm. So thank you, Schindler, Cohen & Hochman.
Steve, to digress for a moment, what does it mean to be an art lawyer? I feel like we both get this question at cocktail parties.
Well, I think, Katie, that you attend cocktail parties more frequently than I do. But I do get the question as well. So let's clear it up for the audience right at the start. Art law is not a type of law so much as it is a generalist practice within a particular industry. In our case, the commercial art market. Art law can involve a broad range of legal issues such as contracts, financing, copyright, fraud, theft, tax, and others, but all in some way involving the buying, selling, monetizing, or the creation of art.
That makes sense, Steve. Thanks. With that background on us, let's talk about the podcast itself, which will have a much broader scope.
So in our first episode, we will consider the question, can museums sell your art? What are the ethics of museums selling donated art? Or to use the art term, deaccessioning. If you're thinking of donating your priceless collection to the MoMA, or even the National Museum of Mustard, which I've learned was located in Wisconsin, you may want to listen in on this one. And Katie, what are the other areas that are up for discussion in the coming months? Can we give the audience a sneak preview of our new podcast?
Absolutely. We are going to look in on the 5 Points case, which is awaiting a decision in federal court in Brooklyn.
This is the graffiti case. Tell me more about it.
That's right, Steve. This is the case involving a number of street artists who are invited to create art on a decaying industrial building in Long Island City, Queens. This is the building that was right across from MoMA PS1. When the landlord decided to tear down that building to build condos, the artists sued to prevent the destruction of their mural graffiti works under a section of the copyright law called the Visual Artist Rights Act, or VARA. So in the context of this case, we are going to talk about an artist's quote-unquote moral rights, or the right to control what happens to your physical art after it leaves artist control, and explore whether it is possible to make sense of this very European-style right in the context of U.S. decisions.
Well, let's talk about the physical art for a moment. What about fakes and forgeries? That seems to be a pretty hot topic these days.
It is, Steve. We plan to do a deep dive into the history of scientific analysis of art and how it is used today in making legal claims to ownership and authenticity.
I should add that we will be inviting leading experts from the field onto the podcast, so listeners won't just have to listen to us talk for 45 minutes, although that could be entertaining. What else do we have coming up?
Well, we're going to look at quote-unquote appropriation art, or art that appropriates the work of other artists as material for a new work. We will examine the viability of our copyright laws in the face of an evolving body of law, at least in New York, favoring and permitting quote-unquote transformative uses of copyrighted art. And of course, this will mean talking about the famous artist Richard Prince, who continues to infuriate those who value copyright protections and who has, probably more than any other living artist, pushed out the boundaries of what uses of other people's creative materials are considered fair. And Steve, what are you most excited about?
Censorship, Katie. A topic that until recently I thought was a historical footnote, last seen as an ugly manifestation of the culture wars of the 1990s. But now we have a growing call for censorship on the right, as well as on the left, where various protest movements have called for exhibitions to be closed, pictures to be pulled down, and most disturbingly, in a few instances, demanded that offensive art be destroyed.
That's a very hot topic, Steve, especially in light of the controversies at the Whitney and Guggenheim museums this past year.
Well, I'm also excited, if you want to know, about having a chance to consider the relationship between art and activism, particularly in today's political climate. So we're going to examine more closely artists whose practices involve the expression of legal concepts, or even the interrogation of legal systems. I'm thinking of provocative artists like Carrie Young, Jill Majid, and Aviva Rahmani. But I digress from the business of art, that is the art market. What do we have in store for listeners who are interested more in the commercial aspects of art law?
Well, we'll be hosting podcasts about turning art into cash or the rise of art financing, and then a podcast on the art of the chase or the psychology of buying art, just in time for the May auctions. In that podcast, we're going to look at art auctions, how they function to entice potential buyers and sellers, and the legal constraints under which they operate.
Well, that sounds like a pretty impressive first season.
It is. And of course, no Art Law podcast could be complete without a roundup of the latest legal battles over Nazi-looted art and cultural property claims by countries like Turkey and Lebanon.
Well, let's keep folks guessing a little bit. We will also have a few mystery guests and topics suggested by current events.
So stay tuned for our first episode on whether museums can sell your art, coming out soon. That will be available on iTunes and the SCH website, and you can expect to hear from us monthly after that. Until then, I'm Katie Wilson-Milne.
And I'm Steve Schindler, bringing you Art Law, a podcast exploring the places where art intersects with and interferes with the law.
And vice versa.